Recall the definition of causality. To establish that one thing causes another, you need to demonstrate that those things have a relationship with each other, that your proposed cause comes before the effect, and that you have eliminated other potential explanations for that effect. Those are the requirements, whether you're using quantitative or qualitative data in your analysis. But there are also two things that are nice to have when you're trying to demonstrate causality: an experimental design, which we'll cover in a few weeks, or a causal mechanism. In this video, I discuss causal mechanisms in more detail and how we use them to demonstrate cause and effect through qualitative historical analysis. There are many ways to establish causality through qualitative analysis. This video discusses mechanisms and process tracing, and the other two short videos assigned for today cover counterfactual analysis and necessary conditions. Of the three, process tracing, or a detailed description of how a cause leads to an effect, is the most common. Process tracing sounds simple, just describe how things happened, but it is difficult to do well. The key to effective descriptions of causal mechanisms is a clear structure. You need to cover each step of the process in a similar way, with a similar level of detail. A causal diagram can help you do this. A causal diagram is just a picture of how your variables relate to each other. Drawing one forces you to think through exactly what steps you need to describe on the path from cause to effect. For example, John Owen argues that there are two pathways through which liberal democracy generates the democratic peace. Liberalism incorporates both certain ideas and certain institutions, both of which generate constraints on a government's ability to declare war on another democracy. So in his 4 historical examples, cases where democracies might have gone to war with each other, he needs to describe each of these steps in the process, what the debate around war between democracies consisted of, and what institutions prevented leaders interested in declaring war from doing so. Causal diagrams can also help you identify potential problems in an argument. For example, this is my causal diagram from my dissertation research. The link between the strength of a state's institutions and its party system is described clearly, but it is complicated. There are a lot of steps and potential outcomes. Stronger research would focus more narrowly in on one outcome, or a cause that's closer to the effect I'm examining. What is essential, however, is that no matter what your diagram, you systematically describe the relationship between each set of variables in your narrative about the case that you're studying. The last 2 points I want to make on qualitative causal inference are about one type of causal argument. Oftentimes in historical analysis, we make what is called a path-dependent argument. Path dependency relies on the idea of critical junctures. A critical juncture is a key point in history when change is possible. Events such as the fall of communism or 9/11 open up opportunities to change institutions or policies that are otherwise stable. The institutions and practices that you set up during that time period then become self-reinforcing. They become hard to change again. For example, the book Why Nations Fail argues that a country's initial political institutions have a big impact on its later economic development. Institutions that establish rule of law allow for effective regulation of markets and the protection of property rights. This promotes innovation and growth. By contrast, institutions that allow corrupt practices facilitate the development of monopolies and discourage investment, leading to economic stagnation. The essence of path-dependent arguments is that it's hard to switch from one path to another. In this example, fair legal institutions allow for self-correction, while corrupt institutions encourage further corruption. It takes a dramatic upheaval, a critical juncture, to create an opportunity for change. So if you want to make an argument based on path dependency, you need to describe the initial critical juncture and then what happened afterwards. You will typically describe how the institutions and practices established during that critical juncture became self-reinforcing, how they keep themselves in place. And you definitely need to describe those processes similarly. You must use the same variables in every case you study. To summarize, if you want to use historical analysis to describe a causal mechanism, you need to be organized about it. You can use a causal diagram to describe the variables you think are relevant to your argument, then use process tracing to describe how each of those variables played out in each of your cases. When appropriate, you can also describe a critical juncture when institutions changed, and then how that established path-dependent development moving forward.